with a wife and a son out of nowhere. But a stranger? I'd never thought you'd do something so stupid, desperate, mad. He crossed his arms, tucking the letter away from sight. Maybe his brother would enlighten him. What young lady would marry me and pack herself up for a grueling walk across the plains before next Sunday? Grant sat beside him and spread his hulking arms across the back of the porch bench. What about Emma Newsom? No. She laughed like a monkey and never, ever stopped talking. His younger brother's advice was always so horrible. Would you marry her? Grant pulled a face. All right, so she wasn't a good suggestion. He tipped his head back and stared at the porch ceiling, his mouth bunching in thought. What about that redhead you used to walk home a few months back? Engaged to Ralph. He'd already considered the few possibilities many times over. Unless he wanted to fight a handful of men more charming than he ever hoped to be for one of the Connor twins, or marry a woman who'd need a very understanding man to live with her for the rest of her days. What about Rachel Oliver? She might go, seeing how her brother and sister are, even if she's always got her nose stuck in a don't bother rattling off a list. And that was the one woman he'd hoped his brother wouldn't light upon. He didn't want to spell out why Rachel wouldn't have him, though Grant should have realized. She was indeed available and quite attractive. But a man had to be realistic. I know who's available and who isn't, and now I have mail to read. Grant smiled wickedly and grabbed for the letter. Guess I could read it for you. Go bother your wife instead of me. Dex pushed against him. Grant's thick body didn't even budge, but he chuckled, then stood. A glance through the window put a telltale gleam in his eye. Evidently, Lily was in the kitchen. Pestering the wife's a good idea. He slapped Dex's shoulder in passing and hollered at Lily before the screen door shut behind him. Heaven help any passerby who glanced through the window. Those two were harder to pull apart than taffy. Dex rolled his eyes. The newlyweds made him squirm even in his own house. Well, not his house any longer, since he was leaving in about a week. He propped his feet on the porch railing, leaned against the bench seat, then pulled out the letter. After weighing down the empty letter with his carving knife, he unfolded the expensively thin paper covered with the inky flourishes of a woman who liked to write fancy. He suppressed a groan. It was hard enough to read print. The familiar pain behind his eyes crept in as he stared at the words, focusing on keeping the letter still. If only they wouldn't flicker around, reading would be painless. But no, they were up to their old tricks. Dear Mr. Stanton, I have to say, I haven't had as much pleasure in a letter as I had in yours. He read that twice to get all the words. So far, so good. I do so love to laugh. He liked to tell jokes, but he didn't recall writing any. That would have taken too much effort. His letter had been short and businesslike. At least, he'd meant it to be. Fionn K. was quite the puzzle. None of us could decipher it. He read the sentence, then reread it. Rubbing his forehead, he tried again. Oh, decipher. He read it over again now that he'd figured out all the words. The third man I asked at the post office finally figured out you meant fiancé. Fiancé. F-I-A-N-C-E-E. How did two E's say A? And what on earth was the mark on top of the first E for? His headache intensified. He's from France, so I'm certain only he could at the post office finally figured you meant fiancé. Wait, he'd skipped up a line in the middle somewhere. He found the beginning of the sentence again.